Mrs. Princy, Associate Professor in Mental Health Nursing. So in this particular video, you will be learning about few of those developmental disorders which are specifically related to certain aspects when a person is developing. During the childhood itself, a person can end up with certain kind of developmental problem which can be related to the scholastic performance or motor skills or communication related, problems that the child may have. So in this particular video, you will be learning about these developmental disorders specifically related to the scholastic performance, the motor skill development, communication problems. So the first one which I'm going to talk about is learning disorders, otherwise called as specific developmental disorder of scholastic skills. So you would have seen the movie of, the Tare Zameen Par. So we had a boy called as Ishan, right? So he had some problem related to the scholastic skill. He was not able to read those letters, he was not able to write the letters in a, correct fashion, and he had a lot of difficulty even spend time or concentrate himself in the scholastic performance. Even the calculation part he had a difficulty. Usually that movie, if you had seen, you can easily connect that with the topics which I'm going to talk about here, right? So the learning disorders, if you take, we have got mainly the four types. Number one, it is called as reading disorder, which is the dyslexia. We have got the spelling disorder. We have got the arithmetic, disorders, which is called as dyscalculia. And then we have got the writing disorders, which is the dysgraphia. So these are the four conditions which comes under the learning disorders in the children. The first condition is called as the dyslexia, which is termed as disorder of reading. The child will have the slow acquisition of the reading skills, slow reading speed, impairment in the comprehension, as well as the omission and distortions of the letters. So if he reads or if he takes up a word to read, right, he can just see that the letters in the particular word are distorted, or the letters seem to be omitted, the letters seem to be reversed. That is known as the letter reversals. So because of this, the child is not able to read the particular word, right? So that is a condition which is termed as the dyslexia, wherein the child will not be able to develop the skill of reading, or there may be a slow reading speed because he is facing difficulty to identify those letters. Okay, he is having a slow reading speed and impairment in the comprehension. He is not able to understand what kind of what is that word. So all these difficulties that the child will experience with the learning disability, that is specially related to reading, when it comes, it is known as the dyslexia. The second type of the learning disorder is the specific spelling disorder. So in this specific spelling disorder, the child will have an impairment in the development of these spelling skills in the absence of the specific reading disorder. The child is not having any problem with the reading disorder. He can see that the word or the letters in a particular word, everything he can read, but he cannot develop this spelling skill, right? There is no problem with the letter distortions, no letter reversal, nothing, but the child is having the impairment in the spelling. He is not able to spell a particular word. So in this condition, their child will lack the ability to spell a word orally as well as writing the word. There will be a spelling mistake. Okay, so that is the problem with the specific spelling disorder. Orally also, for example, if you ask, can you spell apple, right? So the oral spelling what he gives, there is a mistake. Even if you ask him to write the word apple, there is a spelling mistake in the writing. So both can be affected, oral as well as writing spelling. Okay, so that is the specific spelling disorder. The third one is the specific arithmetic disorder, or we can say the mathematical skill, which is termed as the dyscalculia. So here the child is having a difficulty in acquisition of the basic computational skills. Okay, so it can be the addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. These are the basic mathematical skill or arithmetic skill that the child will learn. But here the child is having a difficulty or a deficit, we can say, in these areas of mathematical or arithmetical skill, right? So whichever you teach the child is not able to perform well in the maths, right? Why? Because he may have a difficulty or a deficit to acquire this particular skill of calculation. So that condition is called a specific arithmetic disorder or the dyscalculia. The last condition under the learning disability is the dysgraphia. So what is dysgraphia? It is a writing disorder. The person is not able to write. Okay, there is a deficit or an impairment in the development of the writing skills. There may be an impairment in handwriting, orthographic coding, and also finger sequencing. So we require some muscles which will help us in holding a particular pen or a pencil, and it will help us to write down. But here there is a difficulty in the muscles, where the movement of the muscles which is actually required to write will not be possible, right? So that condition is called as the dysgraphia. What are some signs and symptoms or the characteristic features of dysgraphia? There will be a major problem in the handwriting. If you take the writings of the child, you can see that there is a poor legibility. You cannot make out clearly. There is excessive erasures. That is, he tries a lot to erase and write again, or maybe overwriting on those particular words or letters. There will be misuse of the lines and margins. If you take a ruled book or a ruled page, usually the children will be given those ruled pages so that they will write, on the correct line in the alignment or within that particular margin. So we have these 4-line books, right? So usually when we give to the children, can be a LKG or a UKG child, when we give, so it is the time when they usually practice the writing. That's the way they practice the handwriting, that they have to write the particular letter or a word inside that margin or inside those lines. Okay, so here if you take the book of such a child who is having the dysgraphia, you can note that there will be a misuse of the lines and the margins. Other feature is there will be a poor spatial planning on a paper. So if you take a paper or a book, okay, so between one word to another, there should be a space which is required, okay, which is necessary that you have to maintain. Or between one letter to another, a space should be maintained. Or between one paragraph and another, there is a space that has to be maintained. Or between one line and another line, there should be a space. But such a child with dysgraphia will have a poor spatial planner on a paper. You can also note that there will be irregular letter sizes and shapes. Okay, so when a particular letter has been written, it has got its own size that we need to write on a paper, or the shape of a particular letter. But here the child is having this difficulty, that is, he'll have an irregular size and the shape of the letters when he is writing. The next key feature you can note is there will be mixture of the uppercase and the lowercase letter. That is the capital letter and the small letters, right? So there will be mixture in between, the first letter in a word should be a capital, right? So a child may just mix up the capital and small letters to make a word, right? So that is not an expected way of writing, right? So here that also can be noted, where there is a mixing up of the uppercase as well as the lowercase letters. The next feature is the child may have this, switching between cursive as well as printed letters. So, cursive writing as well as, writing in a printed way. So the child may just switch, he may have switching of the behavior. Sometimes he may just in between a sentence he may write in a cursive letter, handwriting, or sometimes he may write it in a printed form of a letter. So like that, there will be switching of this handwriting format that he is using. The next thing you can note is there will be a slow writing speed. Even the writing speed of the child will be very much slow, and even to copy a thing, right? Maybe a teacher is writing on the board. Okay, he is having a slow speed of writing. So copying a particular paragraph or lines also will be very much difficult because of the poor speed. Another thing that you can note is the unfinished letter. So what is unfinished letter? A is, you write a complete letter. But a child with this kind of a problem will have a unfinished letter, right? So he will just write half of the letter and he will leave it. Okay. So these are the few signs and symptoms that you can note, okay, when a child is having a difficulty in writing, which is termed as dysgraphia. Right? So under the learning disorder, these are the four conditions that you can usually note, especially the teachers, because children spend a lot of time at school. Teachers are the ones who are going to correct the books. So it becomes a part of the teacher as well as the parents to find out if the child is having any kind of a learning disability or a difficulty, wherein they can identify in the earlier stage and they can give the treatment as soon as possible. Because later on, the child will continue the same thing, which may be a problem in his life. Right? So under the learning disorder, four conditions that we have, that is that reading disorder called as dyslexia, we have got the spelling disorder, we've got the calculation or arithmetic disorder known as the dyscalculia, as well as the writing disorders, dysgraphia. Okay. So moving on to the second developmental disorder, which is the motor skill disorder. So what is this motor skill disorder? So it is the specific developmental disorder of the motor function. So there is a difficulty in the motor skill development, which involves a delay in the motor development, which is below the expected level for a particular age group as well as the general intelligence, right? So if you take a particular age group, say a toddler, right? So in that particular age group, the toddler will have a specific, developmental stage that he has, and the milestone that he has to attain, and the general IQ that he has got, right? So, and also the motor functions, what are those things that has to be developed in that particular age. But a child with this motor skill disorder will have a delay in the development of the motor skill related to the particular age or the general intelligence. So what is the main feature of this condition? So the main feature here, there is a serious impairment in the development of motor coordination. So there is a difficulty in the movement or in the coordination when you say, right? Specifically when a child is doing a school work or is playing something, right? So there is a coordination problem. Say you can even think it as the muscles which are required for holding a pen, for coordinating, right, or for eating the food, right? So all these, there is a coordination between hand and mouth, coordination when he is writing. So this kind of a problem usually he will face in the school or when he is playing. Okay, so wherein there will be a lot of clumsiness in the school work. If you take the book writing part, no, there will be a lot of difficulties because of this motor in coordination. There may be graphia, or when the child is playing something, you require the coordination of muscles to play. So the child may have a difficulty in the sports, difficulty in playing games because of the poor coordination of the muscles. If you take the history of such a child, okay, you can note that there will be a marked delay in the developmental milestones, especially in terms of crawling, walking, sitting, Okay, so that kind of a developmental delay that you can usually notice in the earlier stages itself. So such a child should be, paid attention, so that later on the same thing when he goes to the school, it can result in the clumsiness in the school work, in terms of writing or in terms of playing various games or sports. So a child who is having a developmental delay in terms of walking, crawling, sitting, it is noted that the child is having a problem in the muscle coordination or motor skill. So that has to be identified so that the later on problems can be prevented. Okay, so that is the second disorder. Moving on to the third disorder which we have is a communication disorder. So under the communication disorder, we have got three things. One is the expressive language disorder, the second one is a phonological disorder, and third one is the stuttering. Right. So what is this first thing, which is expressive language disorder? So here the child has got a normal language development, but he is not able to express it out. Okay. So even for that matter, the children who are having a problem in expressing the language even will have a problem to receive the language, right? Both those problems that the child will have. So because of this, if he wants something or he wants to share his feeling, he's not able to express it in the language, right? So, or if someone is saying something, the child is not able to receive the language. So, such a kind of a child later on will have a lot of problems in terms of academics, in terms of occupation, and even with the social communication. So, for all the areas we require the language to learn or to study something, to in academics, or when you go for a job or any kind of occupation, we require to communicate with people, or even in the social gatherings, when we go to a community, when we go to a social group, we require to communicate, right? So such a child later on in his life will face a lot of difficulties related to academic performance, the occupation performance, as well as the social communication. Okay, so that is called as the expressive language disorder. The second one under the communication disorder, we have the phonological disorder. So the word itself says phonology is nothing but the production of the sound. Okay, focal, phonological, right? So here the child will have a failure to use developmentally expected speech sound that is appropriate for a particular age as well as dialect, right? So here the child is having a problem in the production or to use these sound, which is usually required when you're going to communicate. There will be a lot of errors in the sound production, substitution of one sound for another. Say for example, in place of T, the child may use K, right? So to produce one particular sound, the child may just substitute with the other sound. Okay, in place of T, you may say K. So like that, incorrect phonological sound that the child may use. And also there may be omission of the sounds. Okay, so completely the child will omit some sounds when he is communicating, right? So overall you can just say the child is having a lot of difficulty in the production of the sound. He may miss the sounds, he may mix up the sounds, or he may just substitute the sound. So a lot of errors in the sound protection. So that is called as the phonological disorder. The last one which we have is the stuttering. Stuttering is otherwise known as the stammering. Here you can note that there is a problem with the fluency of the speech. Okay, so what is the problem? There is a disturbance in the normal fluency and time patterning of speech that is inappropriate for an individual's age. So a child may have a lot of problems in the fluency or the flow of the speech. For example, he may have the frequent repetition in the speech or prolongation of the sounds or the syllables. Okay, or initially to start a particular word, okay, he may have the problem with the prolongation of the word. Okay, say for example, when asking a child to say apple, right? He may just say it as apple. Okay, so what is that? There is a prolongation of a syllable, or there is a repetition of the particular syllable or the sound which the child is having. So because of this, the child will have this broken words. That is a lot of pause that he will give within a word. Okay, so that is called as a broken word. There may be a symptom called as circumlocution, which means that just to avoid this prolongation of words, he may substitute a particular word with another word. Okay, that is called as circumlocutions. Okay, usually these kind of a problem that the child will have, especially at times of lot of anxiety or stress or any kind of physical tension that he has. So during those times, especially these kind of a problem the child will suffer from. Whole word repetition. Say for example, I see him. To say that, I see him, the child may just say I see him. Right? So that is monosyllabic whole word repetition. So these are the features that you can note in a child who is having the problem of stuttering, otherwise called as stammering. It is a fluency disorder wherein the child will have a prolongation in the speech or prolongation in saying a word, okay, which causes a repetition of the word. So under the communication disorder, we have got disorders of expressive language, the phonological disorder, as well as the stuttering or the stammering, right? So these are a few of the developmental disorders which are specifically related to a certain areas, as I told you, in the scholastic performance, motor skill, as well as the communication skill. So all these problems, when it is identified in the earlier stages, especially at school as well as at home, proper supervision from the parents and from the teachers is very much necessary to identify such children. And if they are identified earlier, the treatment therapies can be given to the child so that the child will be able to function in a better way. Hope you all have understood the topic.